Now, as the fourth child of immigrants from the Punjab, Parm Sandhu barely spoke English as a child. She was forced into marriage, but eventually fled to London, where she joined the Metropolitan Police. In her memoir, Black and Blue, to be published next week, she recounts her extraordinary journey through the ranks, becoming Scotland Yard's most senior ethnic minority woman as chief superintendent. But she tells us her 30-year career was marred by repeated sexism and racism, which eventually led to her suing the force. Last year, they agreed a financial settlement with her. This is her first television interview since then.
When I spoke to the family that I could in London and my friends, it was, don't do it, Parm. You're not going to last, you'll last a week, you might last a month. And I like a challenge. And I thought, well, why not?
Your whole career in the police, to read about it, feels like a fight from start to finish. What hurt the most, really?
At one point, I was on patrol with a fellow officer when a member of the public called me a and my colleague stuck up for me and said, you can't call her that. How dare you call her a And I thought, great, I'm now part of the team, I'm part of the group, they've accepted me. And then my colleague went on to say, only we're allowed to call her a us, the police officers, you're not, because you're a member of the public. And I felt about that big.
What shocked me in a way most was just how it was only in 2018, so very, very recently, that you applied to become chief superintendent, and in the vetting interview with the Met, you were asked to, quote, discuss your Indian heritage. What did they mean by that?
When I first got the email, I thought it was a joke and I wanted to laugh because I was born in Birmingham, brought up in this country, and I was applying for a particular job in the counter-terrorism department. But then to get a security pass for a particular floor at New Scotland Yard, I had to go in and I had to take my passports and I had to discuss my Indian heritage. That was what was written down on there, and that is exactly what they wanted me to do.
Did you react to that as racism, pure and simple?
I did see it as racism, and I did want to challenge it, but I didn't have the way to challenge it. For people like me, for women, for anybody of colour, you have to choose your battles. You can't fight all of them, you'll break. That was one of the battles I chose not to fight. However, my senior colleague decided to fight it for me and sent off various emails saying, what the hell's going on? So I did get an email back apologising.
So when Cressida Dick, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, says the Met is not institutionally racist, what's your response to that?
I think that she's so far removed from reality, so far removed from real operational policing, she doesn't know anymore. She either doesn't know or she chooses to ignore it. Institutional racism exists in the Metropolitan Police, and it is alive and kicking, and it is worse now than straight after the Macpherson inquiry.
Where's your evidence for that? Because that's quite a claim.
The evidence that I can use to justify what I'm saying is the fact that when I was a chief superintendent, of all of us, there were about three officers of colour who were not under investigation. So 3/4 of all of the black and Asian officers at chief super and superintendent rank were being investigated.
You admit in the memoirs that you have made mistakes yourself, most notably over lobbying on your own behalf for the Queen's Award in policing, and that saw you investigated for gross misconduct. You were then cleared. But why did you do it?
People like me don't get nominated for anything. I'm a fighter. I fought for everything that I achieved. I wasn't given anything on a silver plate.
You had it out with Cressida Dick. You described this conversation in 2019. You really gave it to her both barrels. Describe that conversation and how it went.
In July 2019, she was speaking to one of my colleagues about positive action, and she asked my opinion. So I told her exactly what I've told you, that under her watch, the Metropolitan Police has gone backwards, and it is not a safe environment for black and Asian officers. And I said, you should be ashamed of what you've done. You failed us, you failed me. And she just turned her back on me, she just walked off. And even like the day after and the week after, I expected a memo to come down to say, Cressida wants to talk to you about what you said to her. Because as a leader, as a manager, if a member of my staff had said that to me, I would have had him in my office and said, why do you feel that way? What can I do to make it better for other people? She didn't have the courage to do that.
Well, why do you think that was?
Because she doesn't want to acknowledge that there is a problem.
Well, it's reported today that Cressida Dick will go further than positive action, so further than encouraging ethnic minority candidates, and actually she wants to have the law changed to be able to positively discriminate in favour of ethnic minority recruits. Do you welcome that?
Positive discrimination is giving a job to somebody based on their colour. I don't agree with it. I think she's got enough people of colour who are joining the police service. So what's happening is, if you look at the recruits that were recruited last week, last month, you will see the majority of them are of colour. There are women, and it has changed. What Cressida hasn't acknowledged, and what she fails to recognise, is that there's a revolving door. So people are joining, they're staying for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then they're being forced out, or they are leaving because it's too difficult.
But if things are worse than they were at the time of the Macpherson report, is it the case that not only could a George Floyd happen here, but it is happening here in many instances?
When I talk about the label institutional racism, yes, it fits. There is a core of police officers who are racists, who have power, but there are a lot of police officers who are good, who are kind, and who are there for the right reasons, and who want to make that positive change.
What do you do about that core of racist police officers?
When I left, I had an exit interview with senior people within the police service, and I talked about that core of officers, and they said, oh yes, we're going to do this, we're going to review our policies, we're going to review the structures. Nothing changes.
After this catalogue of racist incidents throughout your career, you took the Met to Employment Tribunal and then settled. Why did you decide to go for a financial settlement rather than have your day in court?
Okay, I'm not allowed to go into the details of the settlement because that's against the forms that I signed. However, if I was sitting here now and I said the Met is racist and the Met is corrupt, you and the people at home will be thinking she's making it up and there's no evidence. However, I settled so that I could prove that point. Why did the Met pay me if I was telling lies?
It's extraordinary, really. At the end of your book, you talk about how you'd still recommend that people from ethnic minorities join the police after all you've been through.
I loved what I did right up until the last day. There were some challenging, awful times in it, but for young people who are trying to join the organisation now, and even people who are already there, you've got to keep going for as long as you can. There will come a time where you just can't fight anymore.
Parm Sandhu, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, the Metropolitan Police told us tonight that Parm Sandhu was a successful former Metropolitan Police officer, and the legal matters between her and the force are private. The force said it had made no admissions of liability in respect of claims of discrimination against her. The Met said Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick's record on issues of race and discrimination speaks for itself, and she is deeply committed to continuing to build a service that reflects those it serves. And it pointed out that around half of the black and minority ethnic officers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland are employed by the Metropolitan Police Service. That's some 5,000 officers.